All right. What is up, guys? And welcome back to TorqueTalks. Today, I am still broadcasting from Kyle Hudson's basement. And today, I have with me the man himself, Mr. Kyle Hudson.
That is I. How's it going, everybody? Fresh from the basement.
So, this is the third year that I've been out here. And it has just been amazing every year for... What do you call this gathering? What do you call it? Not what is it called? Because that's up for debate.
I guess at this point I would call it Triassic Gathering, hosted by Team Triceratops. We were originally going to do the different like dinosaur eras and then like kind of change it up every year. But it's kind of just confusing. We were going to do like Triassic one year and then Jurassic and then Mesozoic or whatever the next one would be. I'm not even sure. But at this point, Triassic Gathering I think is easy enough. Plus, it's on the shirt, so I mean...
Yeah, well, because I mean,
written now.
Last year it was Team Triceratops Gathering, because the first one was Triassic, and then it was Team Triceratops Gathering, but everyone was still calling it Triassic. And then this year, I've heard both thrown around equally.
Yeah, so either one, you're not going to be wrong. It's like someone who has two names, you know? You can call them either.
Right. But so every year, Colorado has came out with a squad and with part of the tour, and... his parents have just opened up their house and just like this fat basement that we're in, and everyone gets, to sleep on a comfy surface and air conditioning, and it's always been a great time. And then we go out to the salt flats every year. And what's it like planning for that? Like for the salt flats? Because I know Tim has told me that typically you guys go out a few days before to make sure it's even like you can even go on them because it's not too, wet or anything.
Exactly, yeah. So we used to do that. I mean, like in the previous years, we have gone out beforehand to make sure that salt's in like good condition because it depends on how harsh the winter is. If it's been snowing and raining up to that point, then the salt is pretty much going to be super muddy. And this winter was a little bit more harsh, and I think we saw that this year because it was a little bit more slippery. But regardless, you can still throw sweet tricks. It's going to look amazing. It's a beautiful experience, even if you can't throw, the craziest tricks. It's just a surreal place to be. It's something that only Utah offers, and so we wanted to take advantage of it. And the reason we came up with that idea was because the very first year that we were a part of the tour, when Slava and Vivian came out, and that whole group we took them to a place around the corner from our house. It's called Antelope Island. And on the way out there's like a mini salt flats. And Slava was like, oh my gosh, that looks amazing. I'm going to throw some tricks. And then we just were like, oh my goodness, like we have the salt flats a couple hours away. We should try this next year. And that was the first year that the Garrison went out there, and it was just like a complete success.
Oh, so the year that I came out was the first year that you guys had actually went out there?
Mm-hmm. That was the very first time. That was like, trial run pretty much. We took it a lot more seriously that year, like as far as going out and making sure the salt was in good condition. Mm-hmm. We went out twice, actually, before the Garrison showed up and the gathering started to make sure the salt was in good shape. And it was perfect. It was cloudy that day as well.
Yeah, that overcast was great because it was like 110 degrees out there. It was so hot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful, man. Love it out there.
Yeah, and then this year we had a windstorm come in at the end that almost took away a bunch of the tents, and it looked, I wasn't actually over by it, but it looked like the giant white tent that you guys had started to blow away.
Yeah. So the pavilion that we take just to cover ourselves from the sun, get some shade, it almost like just straight up took off, man. And I don't know what would happen if it did, because at that point, like chasing it down.
Yeah, you're not fast enough. Those winds were starting to whip.
Uh-huh. Luckily it happened later in the day. Things were starting to wind down. We were just about to do the fireworks, and so we weren't able to this year. But regardless, like it was pretty nuts. I mean,
yeah. It was a good experience. Then we had a close call where one car almost it did get stuck, but we managed to get it out after a couple of hours of effort. And how many people do you think were pushing it out?
At least 10 to 15.
Because we pushed Tim's car, which was towing it, as well as like another 10 people on that back car. So it was probably closer to 20, actually.
Yeah.
Because there was a bunch of people. But we managed to get that kid's car out, which, lucky him, because I bet his parents would have killed him if they had to send a tow truck out.
Yeah, would have been spendy. His dad was on his way out, and he was just going to come out with their SUV or something, tried doing the same thing that Tim did. So it was good to save him the trip, save him the time. But it's not just like digging a hole in the dirt. The mud gets so thick and so like it's just hard to dig, And so it took a lot of time and people got dirty, but got it done,
Yeah, it's crazy what can happen when you have like 20 trickers together and you need to dig a car out. It's just unfortunate that we didn't know the method this time that we knew from the last car that got stuck, because the only reason that we knew how to dig out under it and like get the high center taken care of was because that's what the tow truck guy had to do a couple years ago when Marion Tucker's car got stuck.
Yeah, we thought he would have like some special salt flats removing tool technique thing, but it was pretty much just the same thing, just digging until you could just push it out, So,
but we got it out and everyone made it back safely. And, my car's almost fixed. Still just waiting on that phone call of the clutch got put back in and it drives again. Because that was crazy, too. We almost didn't even make it out to the salt flats. I might have talked about this with Sebastian yesterday, but we were just on the way to get out of town and head towards the salt flats when my car just decided the clutch wasn't going to do it anymore. And it had been showing some issues from Moab and, all the way to here, but then it got real bad. And then it actually exploded like in the driveway of the shop. Like I was backing it into the shop and it just completely went out to the point of like, if it went out anywhere else, I would have had to tow it there. But luckily, Steven and I and the guy were able to just push it up the hill into the shop. And so fingers crossed on that.
I was a little bit worried when I checked my phone. We were out there. Then Jordan messaged me. He's like, hey, like explaining the whole situation that you guys had gotten stuck and clutch wasn't working. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I really didn't know what to do. But then my mom was like, oh yeah, we got the van. Yeah. But she's like, the battery might be dead too. So it was just like our only option, and it just happened to work.
Yeah.
Borrowed my mom's car, so it was perfect.
It worked, and we made it to the gas station, and then apparently there's 2 keys, and one of the keys opens the door, and it will go in the ignition and start the car, but it won't keep the car running. And so you have to use the other key to start the car and keep the car running. And so at first, Jordan was trying to use the regular key that opened the door, and it kept like stalling out. And we were like, oh, we're going to be stuck like an hour away from Kyle's and an hour away from the salt flats.
Right in the middle.
And then finally someone said like, yo, there's 2 keys. Try the other key. Switch keys, and it starts right up. And we're all like, let's go.
Yeah.
Like this trip has been such an adventure for everyone in my car, and everyone's had the best attitude about it, which has really helped, like no one's been really upset or negative, even though it's very easy to go to that place when like people are supposed to be at work right now, but because of the car situation, like there's nothing we can do. And so we're just making the best of it. And like right now people are outside in Kyle's backyard tricking and lighting smoke bombs off. And
yeah, it's a party. And from a host perspective, like the main goal is just to make sure that people have a good time. And so when things don't go according to plan, or when someone like isn't able to go to the salt flats, for example, then like it just all of a sudden is like, oh my gosh, like I don't want these people to have a bad experience. I don't want them to go back home and then get asked how the gathering was and say it was like total trash, like you want them to leave your gathering and then go home and be like, I'm so glad I went, instead of being like, I don't know if I'll go next year.
Oh, yeah. So, well, I mean, and that's been everyone who's come from Colorado's experience. Like, we go back and we're like, yo, everyone who didn't go, you made a huge mistake. Like, that was the best time. Like, all of this BS happened and it was still the best time.
Yeah, and that's what makes it all worth it. Like, there's so much stress leading up to it. It's hard to host an event, but like hearing the feedback and everyone's reactions when they do come to the gathering and hearing you guys say that is just like, yes, like I do want to keep doing it. I do want to have a Triassic vibe when I hear those types of things, like if people want the gathering, then we'll do it, like if it's really making a difference for the tricker, if it's making a difference for like anyone, then it's worth it in our opinion, you know?
Well, I definitely think it is. And especially for like your local community, like I saw the most local trickers come out on this one than I've seen in all of them. And that's really been cool to see, is like all of these younger kids coming and they get to experience a gathering that's close to home. And like I talked to a few people that were like, this is my first gathering I've ever been to. And then, you know, you had people like Alex Kerwood and Dougie Chalmers and Renato and, you know, Sebastian White and like all of these super, super talented people that were just throwing down, and they got to like come and experience that just like 20, 30 minutes from their house.
From their own house.
And like, I think that the more that these types of gatherings get hosted and like people within the community start going to them and, you know, spreading the feedback, we're going to see a bunch of smaller gatherings start popping up. And like, people need to realize that not every event needs to be like at the scale of Hooked or Neo. Sometimes it's okay when there's, you know, like 40 to 50 person gatherings, or even like 20 to 30 person, because like those smaller gatherings are a lot more, you know, connected,
more interaction. Between
and you get to learn everyone's name and, you know, have a lot more one-on-one conversations without feeling like you're missing out on, you know, all of these crazy things because everyone's just throwing tricks down that are like you don't want to miss.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to get that other side of those, because I mean that's where the friendships are developed, and like where you get to the point where you're like, oh yeah, that person, I can't wait to see them at the next event, or like, oh, I'm going to be going through the town that they live in, I should hit them up and like stop by just to say hi, even though I'm going there for work or for some other things. And like, there's tons of people who always, when they come through Colorado, hit Kerwood or I up at the Torque House, and they're like, yo, what's going on? Like, can we come through and just like say hey and like chill for a night or something? Because we got this work thing, or, you know, we're on our way out to this event or whatever it is.
Yeah. And I like what you mentioned about the locals too. Like some of the kids that came to the gathering, I've never even seen before, but they're still from Utah, you know, like they're tricking down in Provo or different areas that aren't where the gathering is, come up to the event. And I'm just like, you guys are from here? What? Like, why haven't I seen you before? And then it creates this relationship, and now we can go see each other in the future, and the sessions are just going to get bigger and bigger now that we made that connection. And another thing that it does too is for our own team, like the immediate Team Triceratops, every single time the event is over, someone will make a post like on our little team chat, like, guys, that was the most fun thing ever. Like, I'm so glad we did it. And we all just get tighter and tighter every year that goes by. The team gets stronger and stronger. So it's worth it in that aspect, you know?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And when did you guys actually start Team Triceratops?
Since 2009. We made these shirts today, and it says right underneath them 2009. That was I guess 10 years ago. It was way back when I lived in California. Me and my best friend at the time, James Hunt, had just started tricking, and the thing to do back then was like make a tricking team. Everyone was part of a tricking team. And so we're like, man, it's just like me and you. We're going to have two people on this team, but we're going to do it anyway. Or just for fun. And then he threw out the name. I was just like, yep, that's it. Team Triceratops. We're doing it. We started making videos and putting out samplers and whatnot. And it kind of just stuck around. When I originally came up to Utah, though, and met up with these guys, we were talking about doing a team. And I'm like, well, there's this team that I've like been a part of and kind of like been doing in California. And they liked the idea. So we just kept it rolling, you know, like came up here, and now there's like 20, 25 people, and it's getting bigger and bigger.
That's awesome. How often does everyone train together?
We have sessions, I mean, very often, like almost every day. But when everyone gets together, it's probably like once a week, and we can get up to 20 trickers or so. That's
still pretty awesome for a single session. And like, what was it like last year and the year before as far as your session numbers? Like, how has it changed over the last 3 years since you've been having this gathering?
Just sessions?
Yeah.
They've stayed like somewhat consistent, but it's sometimes the people will come in and out. Like 1 year we'll have a certain group of people that are like really active, and then the next year they'll kind of like fall off or something like that. But more like the numbers at least stay consistent. They're never getting smaller. We always have at least 10 or 15 guys, depending on injuries that are training consistently. And then when we all get together, then it's like pretty much a gathering, you know, it's nuts. And everyone brings that hype and it's dope.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what do you think is going to happen with the Utah community with you moving? Because you're getting married, and how long? Like 2 weeks, right? Like super soon.
Like 11 or 12 days. So not this weekend, but the next weekend I'll be married, yeah, up in Idaho. And we will be living in Tennessee for about 6 months, doing some shows and whatnot. Place called Pirates Voyage. And then when we're done, I'll move back. We're not going to be up here where my parents' house is at. We're going to get our own place a little bit more down south where the rest of the team is. But I think the gathering hopefully will continue. I mean, I'm not going to say for sure, but that's the plan. That's the hope, right?
There's always been a little bit of doubt every year where you're like, I'm not sure if we're going to do it again next year. But then when it comes down to it, there's enough desire, I think, where people are like, yo, but I'm trying to go to that.
People really want it to happen. So and it's so special for a lot of people. I don't want to take that away, you know, like it's too awesome not to do. It's just hard.
So, but like with the community while you're gone, what do you think is gonna happen? Like, do you think everyone's just gonna keep training the same way, or do you think? Because I mean, like you were like Team Triceratops is your baby, and like you're the thing that sort of holds the glue together. I'm sure there are some other core people in the group that, you know, do that, but like, you know, every community has that person that really, you know, or a couple of people that are like the key people that keep everyone in touch with each other, because they're like, oh, I'm going to go hang out with this person and then hang out with this person. And then we'll bring those people together. And like, you know, so.
Yeah, that's the dream for any person that starts like a big community, is to be able to leave that community behind or like kind of hand it off to the next person and watch it still grow. And I think it's gotten to the point where that would happen. You know, if I just like stop tricking or kind of called it quits or stop doing the gathering, I really believe that Team Triceratops would continue and someone else would pick it up. We got a lot of like passionate dudes on the team, guys that are capable of organizing events. And
well, because I mean, every year you have a bunch of help from the team,
exactly,
putting this together and organizing everything. And I mean, because you guys figure out the food situation and the cars, getting everyone out to the salt flats and then back.
Yeah,
and
very combined team effort.
And that's difficult to do. You know, we've only done a long trip once on our gatherings, and it was only about an hour 45. And this is about a 2.5 hour trip for the salt flats, depending on how you hit the traffic.
Right.
And so like, I know how rough that is trying to get, you know, 15 or 20 people out there, but we end up having more than that. And like people just figure out how to get their cars out there and take care of the gas. And it's interesting to see how a lot of people step up in different areas when it's needed versus, you know, if everything was completely handled, I think you wouldn't see it as much because there isn't, you know, a need, you know, but it's much more community and like feels like a family gathering where it's more of like a family reunion than it is like a tricking gathering, even though you're like, you know, I don't think I've ever met that cousin before. Like that's what it feels like to me, at least. I come from a big Catholic family, so like I have cousins and shit that like have grown up like hella far away and like up in Buffalo, New York, and I'm from, you know, down in Virginia, but then I live in Colorado now. So there's people that like I just have never met, and if I was to go to a family reunion, it'd be a very similar experience of like,
for real,
hey, who are you? I feel like we know each other. Yeah, but like we'll get to know each other just because we have that connection.
Totally. Yeah, the team is super well connected, and there's just so many of us that care about the event and care about tricking, and everyone does such a good job doing their part. We sometimes like delegate like, okay, you're going to be in charge of this, you're going to be in charge of that. But really like when it comes down to it and it's crunch time, everyone does like anything that they can do. It's not like they're only going to stick to their job. Like, oh, I'm the guy that's doing the fireworks, or I'm the guy that's doing the food. I can't, dip into that area, even though there's help. They always step up anywhere that there's help, like people are picking up trash and just doing anything that they can. Even the gatherers, like that's what makes the event even possible is you guys showing up. And when you do show up, like you said earlier, your positive attitude when things go wrong, that's what makes the gathering work. Like if someone encounters a problem at the event and then they're just super negative about it and then complaining or something, or they don't solve the problem, then the event's just going to fall apart. But because the whole tricking community and gathering like is just such good vibes and you guys are so calm and relaxed and positive, then everything just flows smoothly even when there's a problem.
Right. Well, and it's because people step up like immediately as the problems were happening with my car. The only thing I was focused on was like, okay, what am I going to do about my car? How much is this going to cost? Do I have enough money? And so I'm like, I'm worried about that, not like, how am I going to get to the salt flats right now? So Jordan and Irina and Quentin and probably Steven as well started like talking and getting in touch with you and, Adam. And we were considering maybe renting like a car because it wouldn't have been that expensive with 5 people. And then some other people were willing to chip in to help us get out to the salt flats that night. And, Jordan was willing to drive, and take care of that. So I didn't even have to worry about it because he knew that like I was still trying to deal with the car situation. And so it was like, but everyone stepped up and got it taken care of so that everyone could still enjoy it, without putting it all on one person as like, oh, okay, well, you were the driver, so we'll just wait around until the driver figures out the next move. It was like, no, that we're all in this. And like all of us need to figure out a new way to get there. I have some ideas. Here are those ideas. And it's always nice to be in a community where you have those types of people where they step up when something needs to happen. Yeah.
Trickers are a very unique type of people, and even people who aren't trickers recognize that, I'm dating a girl that, we're getting married in 2 weeks. So, I mean, she's been around me a long time and she's been around the team and she can see that bond, like we show up to sessions and we are excited to see each other. And there's just this thing that we share that we're all passionate about. And it's amazing, like I just think trickers have such an amazing passion for the sport that it is even noticeable to people who don't trick. And I think that's incredible.
Oh, yeah. Well, you can always tell when someone's passionate about something, no matter what it is, because when they start talking about it or doing it, they just come to life in a different way than most people are used to seeing that person.
Yeah, they perk up all excited and everything. Yeah, for sure.
So we talked about this a little bit the other night, but I'd love to get your thoughts actually recorded down. So I asked you, what do you think of the current state of tricking? And I left it super broad in that like you can attack or discuss any sort of area within tricking that you wanted to, as far as like your thoughts on it, and just like the sort of the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah. So, I mean, pretty much the same thing that we talked about previously when you asked me this question. This current state of tricking, I'll start off with the positive things. I think it's great. I mean, things that have changed since I started. When I started, I could like think of all the names of people that tricked. I feel like I knew them all. And so it was just a very small community. Since then, the tricking has grown. The tricks have gotten better. People have breaking barriers. There's been more gatherings. There's gatherings worldwide, events worldwide, and opportunities to make money now with new events that are coming out. And so I think tricking is progressing in the way that we all expected it to over the years. And so I think the state of tricking is great. There are things that have changed for the better, some for the worse, with the use of social media, for example. When I started, the first videos I saw were all on YouTube. And when you watch a video on YouTube, it's basically a 3 or 4 minute video all compiled of 6 months time, And so there's
the old samplers, all of the people's work that, their best tricks over the course of those 6 to 8 months, where they were like saving every clip up for that.
They put the best clips in there. They choose the perfect song. They have to convey an emotion through that video. They put their personality into it. There's so much time and effort and work put into a sampler that you can feel that as the viewer, you know? And so it made watching samplers so special. And that's why even when we get together at gatherings, we don't sit around someone's phone and go through Instagram clips when we're all just hanging out. You know, we pull up samplers on YouTube because those are the things that mean the most. You can watch the most tricks. They're the best. And it's what we're going to do forever, in my opinion. People are always going to upload samplers, the ones that know that they're important. And that's the thing that people are forgetting, is that they are important. They do play a role, and they should be around. You know, I do not think that they should die in any means. I think people need to recognize how important they are. And I'm not saying that Instagram's bad or anything, but it takes that like ability to put so much time and effort into a longer video. You know, you can just upload clips and like get that immediate instant gratification.
Well, and also sometimes one clip is going to get way more views and way more attention, and you're going to be able to share it with more people than if you put together, you know, a 3 to 4 minute video. Because a lot of people, they just don't have the patience to watch those, the full videos. And, you know, they'd much rather just go through and scroll, because, I mean, all of the clips that are in the longer videos, they've already seen someone else do those exact tricks on Instagram. And that's something that we didn't used to have, to where like you could just go and search and see whatever tricks you wanted to within like a couple of seconds. You know, like it used to be you had to know which people to like go and look for on YouTube to like find, and you'd like find them through like the forums or just people that you knew who would mention like, yo, you need to go watch this person, like go watch Teddy, go watch Anise, go watch, you know, Ramen Food, or, you know, Ben Harold, or like just random names that people would tell you about. And they're like, yo, you should check this guy out. Like,
now you have to memorize Instagram handles. Yeah. Go check out 23 Tajitsu, like, and just like all these crazy names.
_ _ _ at Michael.
Yeah. Like, you're like, what? But quick story I want to share is right after I got done being a missionary in the Dominican Republic, I finished in 2015, and then I went to NEO that same year. And I was in a cast, so I couldn't trick or anything, but I still went out. Cast. Yeah, still went out. And I was talking to Michael Guthrie, and, you know, you're always going to remember the conversations that you have with Mike. And I was talking to him, and I'm like, dude, when did we meet, man? Like, it's 2015. I was like trying to remember when we met. And then he's like, oh, it was like Loop Kicks 2012, back when tricking used to be fun. That's what he said. And I was like, it like blew me back. You know, I was like, oh my goodness, like Mike just said back when tricking used to be fun. And, you know, like that can be taken in many contexts. And I think he obviously still has fun tricking, and he loves it. You know, he's very passionate about the sport. I think the only thing that he was trying to say about it was that it just used to be different and that it's changed, you know? And there's a certain few people that really take that seriously, and like it almost makes them stop tricking, you know? And I think we've seen that, where people have stopped tricking just because
they don't like where it's going.
They don't like where it's going, you know? And I mean, then you ask yourself the question, like, were they really passionate about it? Like, did they love it in the first place? And I think that shows. Once tricking starts heading in a direction, whether you like it or not, the people who stick around are the ones that really care about it, care about the movement, and care about the sport, you know? And that's the same experience that I've had. Tricking has gone a direction. There's some things I agree with, some things I don't. But I do my best to just, you know, be positive about it, contribute what I can, make positive impact. And I don't love the sport any less than I did the day I started. You know, if anything, it's grown. And that's the biggest takeaway that I can give to anyone, you know, is like, yo, if you're coming up in tricking, like, don't really worry about getting the most followers. Don't really worry about getting flown out. Just like develop a love for the sport, suffer for it. When it knocks you down, when you get an injury, fight through it, come back stronger, because it's going to make you love the game even more. And that's what's going to give you longevity in tricks. You can be the strongest person in the world, but if you don't love it, then you're not going to stick around. But if you love the sport enough, no matter what happens, whether you get every injury in the world, you're always going to come back. You're always going to be there. You're always going to support every event. And, it's like, look at Scott Skelton, he doesn't necessarily train, but he's at ATG every year. And that's how I want to be, is like, in 10 years, hopefully there's gatherings in Utah and I'm going to be there, like, that's what's the difference maker. And I think that's what tricking needs in the current state of tricking, is people like that, people who will be around no matter what, people who aren't just going to leave tricking because they decide that they don't agree with something. There needs to be leaders.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and that's something that I've always said, and I've had many conversations with various people on this podcast about, is like, tricking is this force that just moves in the direction that it's going to move in. And all we can do is support it and give it our critiques, and like, sometimes those critiques are heard and people make adjustments and the culture makes adjustments when there's enough, of a conversation around something. And like, there have been certain things where, people have sort of decided, like, hey, like, this whole Red Bull throwdown, Red Bull whatever thing, like, they're not really doing justice to our sport in the way that, we want it to be done. And so the support wasn't there for that event. And when the support wasn't there, then that event was like, okay, well, we're not going to do this anymore because you guys have spoken, without showing up. Like, it's clear that you don't want this to happen. And I think that, like, yes, that it sometimes is a hindrance, the way that the community will jump all over things. But at the same time, it happens organically within the community. And, everyone puts out their opinions, and like, the people who do support those things, they go and they show up. And like, if there's enough people that, support it, they're going to show up and make the event awesome, even if there's a group of people who are talking a bunch of trash about it. And it's only once you go through and see the events for what they are that you can make an accurate judgment call. Because, if you just hear from secondhand people totally what their perspective was, then you're always going to have this secondhand experience of what that was like. And so we try and go to as many of the various events that try and do something in, as far as battles or like prize money and things like that as we can, out, just to see what it's doing and like, what are they trying to do for tricking, and do they have that respect that you were just talking about, where it's like, hey, sometimes this is going to go in a different direction than I wanted it to. But the biggest thing that I think shows whether or not someone is going to stick around is if they come into tricking with a plan of where it needs to go. Like, as soon as someone comes in and is like, oh, this is exactly where tricking needs to go, and I'm going to take it there, 6 months tops. That's how long that person is going to stick around for within the community, because they're going to realize as soon as they start trying to push and force their perspective on an existing community that, typically they're fairly fresh to. The community just doesn't respond to that. First off, they look at the people and they're like, well, who are you and where did you come from? And like, who do you know here? It's almost like tricking is a frat party. And like, it's like, yo, like name 5 brothers or you got to get out of here. Like we're gonna, you have to know certain triggers to be able to like try to push a giant event in like that. And like, that's like Andrew Court. He has enough of a name and he's shown his love for the sport enough that people are willing to take a chance on something like this, because it is something that's kind of scary, where it's like, okay, well, that's a lot of money that you're throwing behind this event. Who is throwing that money? Why are they throwing that money? What do they want from it? What do they want to milk out of tricking? And, how is that going to affect it? Is it going to be good for it or is it going to be bad for it? And having, one of the partners involved in this be an actual tricker with a true love for it is going to be important, so that it doesn't just do what all of the other big events have come in and done, where they've tried to push it in a direction that it wasn't ready to go in. Mm-hmm. So I've got my fingers crossed. but I'm not holding my breath to, of whether Unleash is going to be this huge, success or a huge, okay, we should never do something like that again,
Yeah.
but we'll only know if we actually go and
Experience it for yourself. Because, having an opinion based off of what someone told you about something, like, isn't really your own opinion. You're just believing what someone told you. So you got to go and experience it for yourself. That way you can formulate your own opinion. And I think going to an event is the only way to do that. Like, you can watch videos all day, but you got to be there, experience it, and live it. I think Unleashed is great. Like, I think we should definitely take chances like this and kind of experiment and see what works in tricking, see how the gathering goes, see who makes money. I mean, like, I don't know why it would even be a bad thing to create an event that would give trickers opportunities to make a lot of money. We're always waiting for like the Olympics or the X Games to pick it up. But what Unleash is doing is just creating its own organization entirely. That way we don't need a middleman. It's just like run by the trickers for the trickers, and somehow they have enough money to give it to a bunch of people. But I would love to go. The only reason I think I might not is just because I know
you're probably going to be on a honeymoon.
That, and well, I mean, it's never bad to go roll the dice and try and make some money. But once I saw the list of people who were going, I'm like, I don't think I can
Kyle.
hang.
You're way better than you give yourself credit for. You hit 3-2 on the salt flats.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, quit being so damn humble. Like, it's a good trait, but like, you can knock it back down a little. It's okay to have some confidence.
Yeah. And I know I'm not terrible at tricking, but like Ethan's going, Bailey, and so I'm just like,
there's a lot of killers.
Yeah, I think they're just on a level a little bit higher, which is fine. It would be unfortunate for some people to go enter in every event and then not make anything, so you can lose money essentially going too.
But that's
playing it smart.
That's a gamble that you're going to have to take. And I mean, that's what every sport has to contend with, because
risk.
like racing or motocross or whatever you're doing, even just like travel sports, like anytime you're going somewhere, that's a huge expense that, your parents are making and investing. And, they do that with sports because it gives benefit to the participant and, their kid that's doing the sport. It brings them joy and, also a healthy sense of discipline and understanding rules and sportsmanship. And like, they get all of these benefits from it. And I think that, people just need to start allowing tricking to have that come into it as well. And I mean, it's not going to be for everyone, I'm not going to go and battle at these events, but I'm going to go and get a perspective on what it's doing for tricking to know whether or not I want my Torque athletes to be there. And if I want to try and invest money in trying to push them to get there and things like that. But I mean, I always have a soft place in my heart for the old school gatherings where it's like, yeah, battles only happen if the people want to battle and like they start calling each other out type of thing. But like, we're not going to do a night show for the public, and we're going to have a gym session, and then people are going to sleep at the house, and then we're going to go on a morning hike so that everyone can just hang out and see nature and do something outside of the, just the gym experience. Because like the gym experience is great, and like Neo is a perfect place to go and experience that. But I think that each gathering should have something different to offer the community.
Totally.
And, Neo is that place where you go to see the bangers, to see the most amount of trickers in one spot. There's a bunch of people who you can almost guarantee that you're going to see every single year, like Jihad, Dom Lewis, me, Matt, obviously, and a bunch of the SGTF guys because they host it. But a bunch of like Scar and Gabby and Melissa Bash and Trisha and like there's all of these people who have been to like every single one that you're going to get to see those people at that event. if you don't get to see it in another place. And yeah, so I mean, we do our gathering a bit different, and Unleashed is going to be a completely different event. But I think that tricking has enough space for those worlds to coexist. You know,
For
the
sure,
same
man.
way
And they
that
should exist.
like skateboarders can always pick up their skateboards and go behind the local 7-Eleven or find a stair set to Gap or whatever they want to do. They can just go out into the world and do that and figure it out and like run from the cops in that same way that they've always done.
Yeah, keep it
And
ratchet.
then
Mm-hmm.
and then the kids who don't want to do that, they can have their parents take them to the local skate park, and then they can start training to be in competitions, and then they can go like the circuit route and, you know, skateboard competitively. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with those different avenues because each person is engaging with that sport at their own, you know,
Their own desire, you know.
Yeah.
They're doing it the way they want to, which is the way they should. And I think that's what makes it right, you know. It'd almost be like unethical in a way to believe that doing tricking in a certain way and then do it the other way. You know, if you're like, oh, I love tricking and I should just go to the gym and have fun with my brothers, but you do competitions all day, then like, why aren't you doing what you want to do? You should do what you want to do, whether that be going to battles, making money, or like just going to gatherings and chilling with the boys. I would like to do both. I mean, that'd be great. I think it'd be awesome to make money, just purely based off of battles and winning competitions. It's just a little freaky about the skill level, I guess. Where if like imagine if we had Shosei, Mike, and like all these heavy hitters, it would just create an environment that like who knows what would even happen. You know, like the craziest things would go down. I think that's what HKPK was trying to do, was get like the top 16 guys in that exact moment in the same room and just like
see what happens.
You know, just like roll the dice and just like, oh my gosh, this is just gonna like blow the roof off. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's what Unleash could become, is
an HKPK
opportunity for all those top guys just to like go at it, you know?
Right. Well, I mean, HKPK, the first unofficial, slightly official Red Bull event, like it had the potential to do way better and way more than it actually did, because you're right, it had the right people there. Mm-hmm. And they just didn't approach it from enough of a tricker perspective. And so like they were trying to charge people for media passes, and everyone was like, whoa, this is like a tricking gathering event to us. And like no one was prepared to pay you $100 to film our friends and ourselves trick the way that we always film ourselves and our friends trick.
Right.
And like people were like, yeah, we're planning to make our own edits of this, and like, because we don't know if you're going to actually get this footage out or if we can even get access to it, type of thing. And like, so there was just like little things here and there that the community wasn't used to. And, you know, maybe one day it'll get to that point where it's like, well, I mean, we have a fully legit camera crew and we can't have your guys getting in the way. Well, that's a different scenario. But like that was back in what, 2012? Yeah, that was 2012. And that was actually where I met you, Kyle. Was at HKPK.
Yeah. That was a long time ago. And I hadn't gone to an event before. That was like my first time going to a place where I would meet other trickers that I had been watching online. And I have always been watching them, but little did I know that people were also watching my videos. And so when I showed up, I was expecting to like, hi, I'm Kyle. Hi, I'm Kyle. Hi, I'm Kyle. But I started recognizing faces, and I was like, hey, man, I think I've seen your video. I think you're Rudy Meadows, or I think you're Donnie Martin, or Patio Anderson. And then people were like, yeah, you're Kyle. And I was just like,
oh, you know me?
Wait, what? And I was young too. I mean, 16, maybe 17 or something. And so it was like, even Velu, oh my gosh. He's like, wait, you landed J-Step triple cork. And I'm like, you've seen that video, man? Oh my gosh. And it's such a motivation to a young kid when you hear that from, you know, someone you look up to. So cool opportunity to meet a lot of trickers that were really, really hot at that time. It was cool.
Yeah. And that event actually did have open sessions, and the open sessions were awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And like I remember Nick Vale was trying to get Donnie to do triple cork. He was like super close, hadn't landed it yet. And Donnie Martin, and he just like kept having him go at it, and he was like so close. And this was in 2012 when it was like maybe 20 to 30 people had landed triple cork.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy to have been around all of that. So where do you think that, tricking not is gonna go, but like, what do you think with social media and this changing of like the Instagram clips? Like, what do you think is going to be sort of a next evolution of like the way that we interact with the videos and like the samplers versus the clips? Like, how do you think that's gonna change? Do you think more and more people are just gonna keep going into the clip realm and just like forget about samplers? Or do you think, because I mean, you touched on it a bit earlier,
right?
Where you're like the important people, or not important people, but the people who realize the importance of samplers are going to continue making them.
Yeah.
Versus the people who don't realize what they mean to others. They're just going to post clips.
Yeah. The way I view samplers is like, take like a book, a gigantic tricking book. A sampler is like a chapter of that book. You can go back to that year and read that chapter again. And so I think everyone that is trying to decide whether or not they should like try and make a sampler versus just putting out clips. I mean, first of all, you can do both. You can make a sampler and then put out clips individually if you want, but they got to realize that they're contributing to like tricking history and like artifacts. People are always going to go back and be able to watch those samplers as long as YouTube exists, which I hope it does for a long time.
Well, and there's some samplers that like when you watch them, they're so good that you're like, yo, I'm going to like archive this on my hard drive just so that like I always have it. Like there's a couple of old things from El Dente that I have on one of my old hard drives just because I'm like, yo, if he ever takes him down, I want to still be able to watch that. Like I would never post them and like, like that's his content, but it's like, yeah, I want to have that for, my own. Cause like La Cienega Nights, Anise, that sampler, like that was one of the first samplers where I like really fell in love with tricking before I had like started getting good. And not that I am good, but like just good enough to like do certain moves and like piece together a few combos. Like when I saw that sampler, I was like, oh, I've got to keep at this, And so I definitely think that you're right. Like people need to keep putting them out there because the impact can be very strong.
Totally. It's hard to make the decision to put them out there because it's a lot less viewed now on YouTube. Like when I put out a sampler, it gets like 50 to 100 views, whereas back in the day, that was the only place to watch tricking. And so, you get all these views and a lot more interaction. And so sometimes you like lose motivation. Like, why am I going to put all this time and effort into making a sampler if no one's going to watch it? But also what people have to realize about samplers is as much as it is for the viewer, it's for that person too. When someone grinds for 6 months or however long a sampler can take, sometimes Phil Gibbs samplers, he says, takes, years to really like get it the way he wanted to. When you finally put it out after all that time, it does so much for the individual too. When you know that you accomplished something so big that you've been working on for so long. And so that's another reason that I think samplers should continue to be around in the tricking community is because it strengthens the tricker themselves. It makes them more passionate. They can go back and watch it themselves. They can show it to their friends, their family. And it's like a project that they finally completed, instead of just like, oh, check out this video on my phone. And then that's it. It's like, look at this amazing film, like, and I put so much time and effort into it. And then just that feeling that you get of accomplishment, which can be so beneficial.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I hope that people continue to put samplers out into the world and put some effort into the edits. And like, I know there's definitely some guys on the Torque team that still have that love for a good edit and a decent sampler, like Ethan and Sebastian. Like they're constantly putting stuff out. And I mean, Jordan just released a super cool edit from Neo 7 where it's all trippy because he filmed it through like a kaleidoscope lens. And there's people doing it out there and making dope shit. You just need to go and give them the appreciation that they deserve, because like, I don't think people realize what a YouTube comment means to the person who put that video out. Like when you say dope video or, like actually give it a real critique, people appreciate that, so much because they're used to just putting it out there and then maybe getting some thumbs up. But like when someone takes the time to write out a comment, it helps fuel that fire that's going to make the person's next video and their future content even better because they're like, oh, people actually appreciated that. And, they realize the appreciation that I had for it. And so it makes you want to do so much better. Whereas sometimes you can get discouraged if you keep putting stuff out and you're trying to like share yourself and then no one really seems to give a shit.
Yeah. And all it takes, honestly, like, is one person within a community to like make that difference. Like, if someone like I love making samplers, and I try to make one at least every year. And when my team sees that I'm putting out samplers, they're like, "Oh my goodness! Like, Kyle's putting out samplers. Like, I should put one out," And so they get that, like, he's doing it, I should do it, and it motivates them. And then when they do it, the younger generation, all the kids that came to the gathering, we're gonna be like, yo, you guys gotta make samplers, check mine out. And so the only real way it's gonna make a difference for the generation below us is if we, teach them, implement it, and do it ourselves, With that being said, however, I think the social media aspect of the world and where it's heading is so interesting, and it's almost like impossible to predict. We don't know what's going to happen in the future,
right?
Especially with social media, we don't know how tricking is going to be presented in the future. I do think there's always going to be a new and a better platform soon enough. Instagram's not going to be the thing, and it's going to be some new different platform, and who knows, it might be more of a sampler format in that future social media. So I think just waiting for the future and kind of taking advantage of it when it comes around is going to be huge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's pretty much all you can do with tricking is just try and ride the wave and stay on the board as long as you can. And then, try not to drown when it crushes you a little bit because you'll fall off the wave from time to time. And then you just have to paddle out for the next one.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's nothing to be taken too seriously either, Tricking is meant to be fun and enjoyed. And yeah, nothing to stress about.
We do it for the love and for the culture.
Love of the game, for the culture.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect place to wrap it up. So is there anything else that you wanted to tell people, or where can they find you to follow you and check out your YouTube videos? Or
on YouTube, it's just Team Triceratops. We have our own team YouTube. We plan on putting a couple videos out of this gathering. And then on social media, we're Team Triceratops. And then my individual Instagram is just Kyle J. Hudson. But yeah, I'm chilling. I'm good. Plan on tricking for a lot more years. I've been tricking for 10, and I'm going to see if I can go another 10.
And how old are you right now?
25. So I see my tail throwing down. I'm like, all right, gives me some hope.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Well, I hope that you stick around, and I'll be there with you, hopefully.
Sweet, dude.